This is Math Studies, section 5.4. In this lesson, we're going to talk about 3 less common functions, but still functions that you should experience in a standard algebra class. The first function is the square root function. So the graph of that one, it's kind of like the parabola from the x squared, the U shape, but it's turned on its side. So if you can imagine the bottom half drawn here, it's like a U, but then it got cut in half, and it's only the top part of it. And the reason for that is because you can't square root a negative number. I mean, you can, but it's an imaginary number, so you wouldn't see it on the graph. So you can only square root positive numbers, so we only graph on the positive side. The domain and range for this is negative, well, that's wrong. The domain and range for this is 0 to infinity. Because in both the horizontal and the vertical regions, it never goes negative and it never goes negative, it's only 0 and up. The absolute value function looks like a V shape, and to write that we have a bar, an X, and a bar. If you want to use that on your graphing calculator, you would push the math button and then arrow over to the number menu. And the very first one on there is the absolute value. So if you have a graphing calculator, you can use that for your work. The scientific calculators don't have that feature, and if you have an off-brand, I only know the Texas Instruments calculators, but I know a lot of Androids and cell phones will have that on there, but everyone's different, so you're going to have to try to investigate and see if you can find either ABS or the vertical lines. Anyways, the domain for this one, it goes forever and forever, negative and positive horizontally, so we have negative infinity to infinity. For the range, it doesn't go below the x-axis, it just goes up, so it's 0 to infinity. The rational function, I believe that's called a hyperbole, and I don't really know how to describe that shape. But it has what's called asymptotes, so it's never going to cross this axis, it's never going to cross this axis. So it's kind of like really wide U shapes that hug the axis. The parent function is 1 over x. The domain and range for this, it does go forever this way, and it does go forever this way, same up and down. However, since it never crosses the x or y axes, it's all numbers, negative infinity to infinity, but not 0. So this is a not equal to 0. So those are the 3 functions. What you'll be doing primarily in this lesson is making tables and graphing them. So I have 3 functions here, a square root, an absolute value, and a rational. Again, if you have a graphing calculator, it's really easy to type this into your y equals and generate the values and then plot them. Without that, you can still do this. You just have to put in the -2, get the answer. Put in the -1, get the answer. Put in the 2, get the answer. Since I have a calculator on here, I'm going to go ahead and use that. Okay, so if I have my graphing calculator open, I can type in my equation. I did the square root of x plus 2 minus 4. Notice if the line stops after the 2, I have to close my parentheses after the 2. Different calculators will function differently. Some of them will show the line keep going, but I know on this one I have to close the parentheses. And then I can just go to my table and I can find all the values I'm looking for. So if x is -2, here I have y is -4. If x is -1, then y is -3. Scroll to 2 and keep getting all those values. Again, if you don't have the graphing calculator, you don't need one. You can still just do each of the values singly. It just takes a little bit more time. Okay, so let's see if I can just type these. -4, -3. Oh, and I picked these x values specifically because if you'll notice, it's just going up by 1 every time. Okay. I'm going to get all my tables before I do the graphs, because then I don't have to keep clearing the ink. So back for letter B, I'm going to go into y equals and clear off my old equation. If I want to graph the absolute value on this calculator, I push math, arrow over to the number menu, and the very, very top one is ABS, which is for absolute value. I'll do x plus 2, and I need to close the parentheses to show where the line is, minus 4, and I can go into the table and get the values. So negative 3 is negative 3, negative 2 is negative 4, negative 1 is negative 3, and so on. The last one here is 3 over x minus 1 plus 2. To put that in the calculator, I need to pay attention to my parentheses. Because I want this denominator to stay together, I need to put it in parentheses. Okay, so then I can get the values on my table here. So I have 1.5, 1, negative 1, two, and 3. I skipped the 0.5s because my calculator table wasn't set up to show me the 0.5 values. If you know how to change your table set, go ahead and get those values. I don't want to go over those specific steps, so I'm just going to do it on my calculator. I'm going to just put negative 0.5 in for x to get the answer. And then I'll do the same. I'll put in a positive 0.5 and get the answer. Okay, so I have all 3 tables generated. Now I can do the graphs. So for my first graph, I have a negative 2, negative 4, negative 1, negative 3, 2, negative 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, negative 1, and I can't really graph the rest, but that's fine. It does, that was really crooked, help me know that it keeps going though if I have those points there. Hopefully you can draw better on your paper than I can on my computer. For the second one, negative 3, negative 3, negative 2, negative 4, negative 1, negative 3. Okay, and this is the absolute value, so I can tell that it's going to make the V shape. So I can extend and draw the arrows on those to show that it does keep going. And the last one, one has an error, and so actually that's going to be my asymptote, so I can already see that this one is going to follow this shape, but it's not gonna cross that line at 1 because I have an error there. On the other side of the line, I'll have a 2, 2, and a 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. That seems wrong. No, 2 is 5. Okay, Okay, so then I can tell again that I'm going to have this shape right here. And those are my three graphs. I have the square root, the absolute value, and the rational. So the exercises are the same. You're going to make some values in the table, plot them, and graph them. That's about it. Good luck with the exercises. Let me know if you have any questions.